for you to do the same on your side. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, my time. I'm in Chicago. I would like to introduce a very sweet friend of mine, and a bright light and a high energy and just phenomenal. I mean, we were just having a little jam session before hitting record, and he was talking about sitting at a lake and having cold plunges. I mean, if that's not cool, I don't know what is. My name is Jessica Corvo, and we are talking about all things mental health related for the Mental Health Extravaganza. Rob is here today to talk to us about tech detox, ways that we can disconnect from the world so that we can reconnect with self. So with that said, Rob, thank you so much for allowing your time and your energy and to just be with us today. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for such a kind intro. I feel the same way about you. I'm looking forward to this conversation because you are in tune with who you are and your light, and just show up with your full energy. So I know that the flow we had prior to hitting record, will be able to continue as we speak. I'm in a great space. I love Mondays. It's my favorite day of the week. So
that's awesome. I'm like trying my hardest to break stigmas on days of the week. It's like, no, every day is Saturday. Happy Saturday. I feel like Saturday is an energy. It's not a day. So it's a vibe, right? So when you're just like, oh, hey, happy Saturday, people are like, yeah, no stress, no stress. Like everything's good. But it's like, what if every day was like that? Because it can be. And I think, you know, the element of technology plays such an important role with it, because people have created technology as tools to help us. And at some point, we forgot that it's a tool and we start using it as a dependency. And it replaces rather than enhances a lot of our human interactions and our human capabilities. So let's just dive straight in. What do you see and what do you feel is the biggest pro with technology, and what do you think is the biggest hindrance with technology?
Ooh, beautiful questions. Pro is the fact that we're able to connect to hundreds of millions of people, technically billions of people around the world. So you can connect with a very specific group of people, find your posse, find your crew around the world. And just the fact that why you and I know each other and how we got speaking together, it is thanks to technology. And I'm in my 40s. I used to run businesses when I was a teenager, and I knew how hard it was to connect with people in different places. So it is magic from that perspective. Hindrance is, I think I would say exactly what you mentioned already, this dependency that we create with it, the realization that the forgetting that this thing and all of its tools and all of its apps were created with multi-million dollars worth of psychology in mind to make them highly addictive. And that if you're feeling a little down, if you get triggered, if something upsetting is said to you, or if you're feeling a little blah, instead of sitting into it, reflecting, learning from it, trying to elongate the pause, you just pick this up and there's some flashing little notification that's going to lead you down a rabbit hole and make it you all feel better for 5 seconds. But the long-term effects are way more dangerous than that little blip of dopamine.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's a death by 1,000 notifications, right? Because
I have a module.
Notifications.
Okay, I'm sorry. I started interrupting you there. I have a module named Death by 1,000 Notifications in the first program I ever created.
This is why we're friends now. And it's so funny too, because when, you know, thinking about all these different ways on how we allow stuff, we got to be intentional, right? The way that we allow different things into our mind and into our space, that's not how I view it. I view it as I have this awareness that this is addictive. I have an awareness that I have an addictive personality. I mean, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I don't like feeling uncomfortable. That's a fact. And that is, I think, human nature as well. So for me, I'm like, how can I make myself comfortable? How can I make myself comfortable? And so knowing that about myself, I have to be super intentional about like, okay, airplane mode. Okay, you know, I turn off my phone at 10:07. I have an alarm every night. And that's when I put my phone into airplane mode. And I try my best not to open my phone or touch my phone until 10 o'clock in the morning. So that gives me a natural 12-hour detox every single day. And that's because I know that I have the propensity to, what's going on? What's the world doing? Combination of dopamine hit, combination of FOMO, combination of all sorts of different things, reflecting outward instead of inward.
I love it. That's really great how intentional you are. For me, it's the first hour or last hour of the day that it's a must, and it's generally longer than that. And as well as on the weekend, every weekend I do some elongated period. And on the weekends where I'm really busy and there's lots going on, it might only be like a 4 hour window, but many
Yeah,
weekends it's 12, 24, or 48 hours where I'm unplugging. And
absolutely.
it has to, or else we're tethered all the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like if we want to tie it into like mental health, if we are nose buried into our phone, it's activating our mind and pulling us out of our heart. And so when we're in our mind, we're thinking. So we're thinking, oh, what are we missing? Oh, what do we have to do? You're going through that unlimited to-do list of different things. And so we're missing, the world turning. We're missing the butterflies dancing. We're missing, the orchestra of sounds and nature. I mean, these things, in my opinion, that are, I guess it's the balance, right? So it's, you have that option to see all of the entertainment in real life versus the what's coming next that could be in the technology.
Oh, I like that a lot too, because so much of the things that people talk about or use or employ to try and reconnect with themselves, whether it is exercise or meditation or just focusing on your breathing, or as you mentioned already, walking in nature, it all has to do with getting from here and back into the body. But the amount of mental stimulation, emotional like the amounts of things that you can get drawn into, because
Mhm.
if you are in the habit of picking up your phone first thing in the morning, you can be inundated with what, dozens, hundreds of pieces of information before you've even gone to the washroom, before you've made
Absolutely.
breakfast. And
Don't
that is,
even talk about being judged. I mean,
yeah.
we're in a society that feeds off of making people insecure and buying things to be perfect when you already are perfect. And so if you can imagine somebody who has a strong sense of self, it's like, the whole time. But somebody that is kind of on that path to finding themselves and connecting with that core sense of self in the purest form, it's like, oh wait, maybe they're right. Oh, maybe I need this. Oh, I don't know. And so it can be devastating if you're not intentional. My personal belief.
Well, I agree with it too. And I think the other part of it is it's repeated enough that it becomes subconscious, because then it's not even a conscious thing. We're not even realizing that we're having those moments of doubt. Like the programming becomes so deep because of, I joked about my age a bit earlier, but how many billboards, how many TV commercials, how many storylines in movies, how many, that's already been imprinted in me hundreds, thousands of, how many times. And now plus every day on the phone, there's another reminder of, I
Yeah,
need to be more muscular. I need to have more money. If I don't have this, I'm not successful. I need to be like
absolutely.
that, like over and over
The
and over.
judgments, the judgments, the judgments become our perceptions. And that's when it gets a little scary, social conditioning. So social conditioning is a very tough one for a lot of people. I think that, when we dive just a little bit deeper on how do we recognize what are addictions and when something shifts from becoming a tool into maybe an appendage. Growing up, my parents, they used to make fun of both me and my brother and say, put the appendage down, or put the phone down. It's not an appendage. And so we grew up with that, with no, we're a sport family. So play your sports, do your things. We weren't given a phone. The car had a phone. So if we got into an accident or needed something, we had a tool to help us, but we weren't supposed to use it. And we got fined. Like they made us pay to use the phone because they're like, no, this is decentivizing you to do it. But depending on, how your conditioning and stuff is, if you look at any kind of meditative practices or practices to get you from your external world into your internal world, a lot of it is actually turning off the phone. Like, are you familiar with Vipassana?
Yes.
The first time I did a 10-day retreat, and a lot of people were struggling because they said you have to surrender your phone and you can't write. There's no paper. It's nothing to record what is happening because it's teaching you to flow through it, right? There's no attachment. And for me, I didn't think twice about the phone. I'm like, all right, here. For other people, they were having like big emotions, and it was a big moment for them. For me, it was the garlic and onions. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can do this. I'll come back. Let me try on maybe a 3-day, 10 days. That's a lot.
The place near me that does it, you can't do the 3-day unless you've done the 10-day. Like the 10-day is the
Exactly.
point of entry. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was my negotiation. That was my ego being like, let's talk about this.
what do you mean that no food? What do you mean limited meals? What do you mean no eye contact? Like it's just they really reduce you to just it's just you and whatever noise you have
Yeah.
accumulated here.
Absolutely. I gotta have a conversation with myself. Why? I was like, I don't know if I like myself at that point. But that's the process, right? That's the process. And so I think, like if we oversimplified all these different things, what is your take on all of these modalities and tools and practices that with the intention to try to help people connect with themselves, and yet it's through an app?
Mm,
I
that's
mean,
so.
that's one of my pain points. So like,
I never considered that. That's a really fun. I don't know because the challenge with the phone is the moment you pick it up, it's very easy to get sucked into so many other things. And
mhm,
you said earlier, death by 1,000 notifications, and I got excited because one of the things that I'll tell people is to turn off all of your notifications down to like the bare minimum, like text
mhm,
messages, because that is my children and my partner and my parents,
mhm,
or during certain hours of the day, Voxer notifications, because those are my one-on-one clients, but everything else is muted because the
mhm.
danger is once you pick it up, especially imagining if you're doing a guided meditation or some kind of like workout or anything else that's being guided by the app, it's
Yeah.
too easy. It'd be like me being an alcoholic and I am 1,000 days sober, but I'm going to go have lunch in a bar, like, and I'm going to go have lunch in a bar every day, and that
A lot of
some
temptation.
yeah, it's just so for me. I never consider that. It's very interesting that you point that out, but it's a slippery slope and it's very hard to not do it. One of the ways that might work, because I'm trying to think like what I would do if I was dependent on guided meditations. Um, I put things, not only turning off notifications, but I put things in folders. And it
Mhm,
was so funny how simple of a difference it made. I took all of the apps because when I go silent, I don't store airplane mode. I delete them. When I mentioned earlier on the weekends, like I delete the apps because I caught myself before and I would say, oh, I'm not going to go on for the next day. And I'm like, oh, I just want to check one thing. And then I pick it up.
Absolutely.
Or the
That
other thing I'll do,
curiosity, that FOMO creeps up real quick.
yeah. Or the other thing I'll do is I'll post publicly. I'll post publicly quite often, like I'm going offline for the next 12 hours, the next 24 hours. And it's for two reasons. One, I want to model behavior that I think is healthy. And I'll show other people, because I've gotten response to that, like, thank you, I needed permission, this is great. But the other piece is if I put out publicly, like I'm unplugging for 24 hours, I know I can't show up because I've told people I'm not going to be there.
Yeah, they'll hold
Uh,
you responsible. They're like, wait a second. I thought you said you were unplugging. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Brilliant.
anyway, that was a bit of a rant, but I think maybe the other way would be if you had them separate, because I know that
Yeah.
for a while, me having the app icons in a different folder on a different page, like
Mhm.
that extra 2 swipes, an extra click was enough for me to pause and go, oh, why did I pick this up? I don't need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's an important nuance as well. I mean, for me, I turn off all my notifications. The only way that people can get in touch with me right away is 50-50 phone calls. Outside of that, no, Monday is my scheduling day. You get in my schedule. If you don't get my schedule on Monday, you got to wait the next week. Like I'm very disciplined with stuff like that. And that's because I still work through codependency and I still work through people pleasing. And if somebody comes to me with a problem, my default is let me find a way to make it work. And sometimes that's at the cost of my own health and wellness. So knowing that again, as part of where I am at this exact moment in my journey, I have no choice but to be fierce with those boundaries. And also, if I make an appointment with somebody and they don't show up, then I'm given an opportunity to say, all right, one time shame on you, two times shame on me. If it's two times, you just established a habit. Is this the quality of person that I want to entertain in my world? Is this going to help me or is this going to harm me? And so I think, if you apply that from a person perspective to like app perspectives, not apps, they're always just like, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. They don't care about boundaries. They don't. Even when you turn off those notifications, somehow magically those notifications somehow get restarted. And you're like, come here, give me some attention. I'm like, you're in an unhealthy relationship right now. We gotta put you in timeout.
What a great comparison to the healthy boundaries you've created with people and how, yeah, because it doesn't care. It's not considering your needs.
Yeah.
It's trying to feed its algorithm. It's trying to feed its revenue. It's trying to elongate the amount of time you spend on the platform or the amount of times you return to it.
Yeah,
It's,
because it's trying, and it's also, trying to tell you what it thinks you need rather than asking you what do you need. It's just like, oh, you need this, but how do you know? Why do you say that? So you don't know me. You think you know me. No, I'm just kidding. That's when you get real sassy about technology. But I think, just to kind of like bring it in a little bit, I think it's really important, number one, to kind of like understand what is technology. Number two, the relationship that we have with it. Number three, the different ways that it can easily be a sneaky ninja into our world without our understanding, our consciousness, or even, yeah, having like a second thought, and all of a sudden we're twitching when we don't have technology because we've established an addiction to it. And then a couple different tools on how to kind of manage that with, like, a tech detox, and maybe going into a Vipassana retreat where they literally surrender, you have to surrender your phone for 10 days. And that's a detox. That's, you can't get into that. Or removing your notifications, creating the different folders. I think these are all brilliant, brilliant, brilliant things. Let's shift into what happens to the mind when you shift from that internal world, i.e. you being on a tech detox, going for a walk outside, being at the lake, versus during the week, maybe, when, because you are a business owner and it is still important for you to be connected to the world, what happens to your mind if you forget those unplugged times? Like, what is the propensity for the mind? Like, what happens to the mind if we aren't disciplined with any of that?
oh, anxiety goes up, creativity goes down, ability to focus is crushed,
Mhm.
and like an addict, like just literally making, uh, behaving in ways that I feel I have no control over. It's
Mhm.
wild to make the contrast because it happens not every week, but many weeks. There's some point midweek where I have that realization that you just described. Like,
Mhm.
okay, it's been a busy day. I have a lot going on. I run a business, da da da, and I find myself reaching for it when I don't even need it or want it, and
Mhm.
then I'm struggling to think through a simple situation, or I find myself lacking patience with my children, or I'm finding myself judging myself, or I feel my anxiety or my imposter syndrome creep up.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it
I
has,
think that's very, very powerful, because I think, jumping back and forth between what's the problem, what are the solutions, what are the effects, what are the different things, I think is super important to continue to highlight, to kind of give people, who don't have that awareness. Oh, I don't have a problem. Nobody has a problem until they start losing stuff. And by saying, oh, I'm getting a little bit short, oh, I'm starting to strain some of my relationships, oh, for me it's sleep. So I'm in my head a lot. So when I'm in my head, I think that I'm in flow because I'm like, oh, I'm creating all these different things. No, Jess, it's pure ego. I'm okay with that. I acknowledge that sometimes. But when I have too much time with tech, it takes me a while to unplug, like not unplug, but to wind down. So usually, if my alarm is no tech at 10:07, if I'm healthy and I'm normal, I'm asleep usually by 10:15. Like, it's literally that quick. Brush your teeth, wash your face, plug in the phone, turn everything off, hop into bed, and all of a sudden I'm like, here's the sunrise. It's literally that simple. On days where I've mismanaged my tech use or crossed my own boundaries with that, I'll see 11 o'clock, 11:30, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning. And it'll take me a long time to kind of unplug. And then all of a sudden, I find myself laying in bed with my phone on the side like this. I'm like, wait, Jess, what are you doing? And I don't keep my phone next to my bed. Like, it's not within hand distance. I have to physically get out in order to retrieve my phone. So it's interesting. For me, the biggest thing is sleep, but comma, my interactions with other people.
there's two things from what you just shared there. One is that idea of not having your phone within arm's reach, because we're talking some like more tactic things earlier, and I think that's something that's worth highlighting because when you ask people, if you have a room of 100 people and say who's got their phone within 1 or 2 arms reach 24 hours a day, the amount of people that put their hands up is scary. So
Almost 100%.
yeah, it's almost 100%. And then so what I will say to people too is that put your phone not even just at the other end of the room, but I'll leave mine in the kitchen. I'll leave mine in the living room, because when you're half asleep and you get up to go pee, or when you get up first thing, and it's very easy and habitual to just pick it up on, but if you have it out of the room, and sometimes people say, well, but wait a minute, that's my alarm. But you can get an alarm clock for $20, and the upside of buying a separate alarm is worth way more than that $20. So that's one thing. But also, you mentioned earlier, being an entrepreneur and realizing the power and the need and want to leverage technology because of how helpful it is. I also just kind of point out that if you've been an employee before being an entrepreneur, then you're used to having everything dictated to you and being told what to do, when to do it, what's the deadline, everything is dictated to you. And making that switch from being an employee to an entrepreneur, that's one of the tougher things is, and I love listening to you talking about being intentional, and you're talking about intentional boundaries with your time, with your schedule, with people, and how you use that mentality and that model on technology. And it's important because either you are intentional with what you're doing, when you're doing, what your priorities are today, this week, how you're going to get it done, and who is the master of it, or you become its slave. And if you're used to being dictated to all the time, this thing is a great master. It loves being a master. It will dictate every thought and action. So it has to be intentional.
Absolutely. I mean, in regards to, we have 28 speakers, 28 sessions throughout all of mental health awareness, right? At the extravaganza. And the tagline so far seems to be flowing into, if you don't manage your mental health will manage you. And it's so relevant, and it's so true, because it's, when I coach people, I'm a resilience expert. And so I help people, bounce back, and everything's based on self-mastery. And it's funny because we always start with the mind, because the mind dictates everything else, right? And I said an untrained mind is like a puppy that's pooping all over the living room. It might be cute, it might be entertaining, but it's not useful at all. And that's where we start. That's where we start with, let's clean this up just a little bit. Let's understand it, and let's purify it, and let's get you into some structures and stuff like that. And it's truth, because I mean, I'll out myself. Before our conversation, I had a moment where I'm a little bit stressed. I'm not going to lie. Technology is not always my friend. And I'm organizing all these different sessions. Some people are cool with it and it's super easy. It's literally a 3-step process. Some people are a little bit more needy, which is fine, no problem. But once I articulate my needs and my, boundaries with, I don't have capacity for this. How many times were we already at that limit that we don't have the capabilities to articulate what you need? And so just saying no should be enough, and for people not to take it personal. How this relates to technology, I think that the behavior, so if you take a step back and you look at the behavior of technology, is removing the concept of looking inward and going outward. So when you're in that moment of somebody setting a boundary, if you have that addiction to technology, it's very easy for people to side with, what did I do wrong? How do I fix it? Which causes a lot more trauma and turbulence to an already fragile situation. Whereas on the other side, if you have those healthy boundaries for self, and you already have that trained mind to look internally rather than externally, you don't take it personal, because it's like, they're going through something right now. I'm going through this right now. That has nothing to do with me, because you have that stronger sense of self. So kind of like a lot of different things that I just threw, a lot of noodles I just threw at the wall. But I think, to tie it back, that's one important concept that I just can't stress enough is, one, I out myself on when I fail at technology, because I've been with a lot more technology than normal creating this extravaganza. But then 2 is on how it can affect our interpersonal relationships without us even realizing it. And so what do you think about either of those? I mean, what do your boundaries look like in terms of changing your relationship with technology? Because as a business owner, I'm applying it specific to an event. You can apply it to a business owner. You have all of these strong boundaries. At the same time, if you have a big push, if you're trying to get a new client, if you have, we're in remote world 2.0. sometimes you don't have a choice. It is what it is. How do you make those adjustments? Because nothing is black and white, everything is gray and flowing, right? How do you make those adjustments in order to preserve both your mental health and then two, the relationships that are meaningful to you?
Mm. For me, it's coming to terms, realizing and accepting the truth that if you create boundaries and take time for the other stuff where you're turning off, that it's
Mhm.
going to help you with your push. It's going to help you
Mhm.
getting clients. It's going to
Yeah.
help you with all the things that you're using as a justification to go past where your normal limits are. And this week, I'm launching a workshop this week with someone. It's a collaboration. We've got people from 9 countries signed up. We've got so much to do. Like, it's crazy. I know what kind of week this is going to be, but
Yeah.
I also know that I have to still put my phone away at a certain time and create these boundaries, or else I will burn out, or else I will get
Mhm.
sick, or else I will make a really stupid mistake, or else. So yeah, and the thing is, the technology won't get upset with you. Like, a person might get upset with you, and the back we said earlier, like, it doesn't care and it'll keep sucking you in because the technology doesn't care. It goes the other way too. That
Mhm.
if I
Doesn't have
delete,
feelings.
it doesn't have
You
feelings.
can't
If I
hurt
delete the
it.
app at 9 p.m. tonight and don't log in until like 9 or 10 tomorrow, it doesn't care. It's not. I have not offended anyone.
Yeah.
I got a beautiful email from a client yesterday who's got some health troubles currently, and they know that this week is going to be a little bit dicey because they're not sure if they're going to have to go to Emerge or not. They
Mhm.
sent an email to everyone being like, "Hey, everyone, this is where I'm at. The last time I went through this, I knew that I was at a drop of a hat, that I was offline for 24 hours. I'm letting you know now. If I'm MIA, if I don't show up to a meeting, I want you to know that and forgive me in advance." And it is perfect. It's beautiful. It's this person acknowledging in advance that in a
Healthy
world of
communication.
interactivity, of online meetings, of nonstop, that there's expectations on them, but they've just put it on the table.
Mhm.
And it was really nice. I reread it this morning. That's how great it was. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is well done.
Yeah. I think that's so important for being able to manage expectations, because I think in a professional setting, corporate America is a little different. So corporate America, I think, likes to just use feels as excuses for everything, for not executing. But internationally, because I've had 11 years of working international, and since you referenced international teams, I think that's super relevant to kind of highlight is also what's been normalized in the US, because what's been normalized globally is that healthy communications, is that it's not over communicating by telling people what's happening, but it's over communicating with, if you need me, this is what might happen. So this is the contingency plan. This is the crisis management, if you will. So giving people a heads up, which actually prevents any kind of hiccups in terms of productivity. So it's keeping that human element for the overall intention of productivity and smoothness of any kind of project, which I think is super healthy and pretty important to highlight too. So congratulations for being surrounded by healthy, proactive, and communicative people that know how to use technology as a tool.
Well, for me, it's exciting because one of the things that I'm working on this person with is them creating and holding their own boundaries. And we had a back and forth, and then this is what it led to as far as their idea, their execution. There's not even something that came up in our conversation. So it's really happy and inspiring to see. And you were just joking about corporate America. It makes me think of a meme I saw sometime in the last 6 months, and it was a contrast of 2 out of office messages. And one was someone in Europe, like, I'm out of office until, and it was some date 2 months ahead of time. All emails will be deleted. If it's important, email me when I return, and I'll get back to you then. And the other one is, I'm at the ER. Sorry, messages, responses might be delayed by 20 minutes. If it's a real urgency, you can call me here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because it's ingrained. It's a social construct, and it's just, even if you look at how many days you get off for holiday, the sick days, the vacation days. We don't have sick days in the US. You get sick days and holidays because it's the annual leave. You get two separate buckets when you're in different countries. You get maternity leave, paternity leave. I mean, you get all sorts of, now there's a lot of countries that have mental health days. I mean, you just get a lot of things, again, that companies and governments and countries are actually mandating to help the individual, because once the individual is healthy, it will increase the health of the collective or the health of the company. Whereas sometimes I think in the US, we have a little bit backwards because we're focused on the company at all cost. And unfortunately, that cost to them is higher turnover. It's a crab mentality where it's kind of a race to the bottom. So if you have any superstars, or if you have anybody that's coming up, rather than it be, oh, let's do more of what they're doing, or let's model them, or let's, management versus leadership, I guess, would be oversimplification for business terms. And, not having that individual health has all these different problems that, of course, is going to affect the bottom line. Whereas when they focus on the individual health, as long as everyone is also focusing on their individual health and not just using it as a box to tick, then everyone ends up kind of growing, and then you end up with a bunch of eagles, and then you end up just everyone's soaring, everyone's making money, and everyone's pretty freaking happy too.
I like this a lot because I spent a lot of time, I'm on my third career, and second career was the head of people and culture and head of HR
Yeah.
in tech companies. And there's a lot of focus on what does actually make employees happy, feel seen, feel heard, feel supported, what
Yeah.
allows them to show up at work as their full selves.
Mhm.
Knowing wholeheartedly that that approach actually made for more creative ideas, made for more productivity, made for more innovation, made for a better bottom line. But it's a bit of a contradictory approach for some people to kind of embrace. The other thing too is, so I live in Canada and I took paid paternity leave when my son was born. And I think every country in the G20 except for the US has paid maternity leave or paid paternity leave. And I have a theory that is based on nothing other than my own musings that we'll see in the future a study that shows the long-term mental health effects of the inability for people to feel that they can safely take maternity and paternity leave for those very crucial months, the very crucial bond between child and parent, the difference between someone feeling like, yeah, I can take a year off work for this very important year where I'm going to be there and nurture, maybe breastfeed
Mhm.
during the development of this child, or I feel that I have to go back to work in 3 to 6 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, depending on the state I live, or
Yeah.
else I feel that my job is in jeopardy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even if you Google mental health statistics, US numbers are always the top. And then you have to intentionally try to find statistics for everything else. And it's staggering on how, my personal opinion is, everything starts with technology, right? So technology is kind of the catalyst to hijack us and our mind from internal to external. And then that manifests as society constructs and as society normalizations with, companies, work, friends, like all these different things, right? And then it results in higher suicide rates, higher, I think the last statistic that I read was 1 in 5 Americans. I don't know what the global statistic is, but 1 in 5 Americans are subjected to mental health ailments or diagnosis. Number one and number two are depression and anxiety. And then in terms of severe, I don't know how they define severe, but severe is 1 in 20. And so with, all these different things, if you want to connect it with bereavement, if somebody dies, people don't have those tools to communicate their emotions or how they're feeling, or that sense of connection or community. If you want to connect it to mental health, I need help, it doesn't allow people to have that safe conversation. Or in the work context, if you don't, a lot of management is, if you don't do this, we'll find somebody else who will.
Yep. Yes.
And so there's all these things that are, you're up against a wall, and it's no fault of your own. And I don't want to be dramatic with, okay, technology is going to lead to suicide. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you have to be intentional with how you allow different things and increase that awareness to the surroundings, and if this is something that's healthy for you, or if it's something that may be less healthy.
I think there's definitely a connection there too, and back to this, if you don't do it, we'll get someone else who will. Because we were talking earlier about things you can do with your phone and the healthy boundaries you have, and some things I do. But I was definitely thinking more from the point of view of me as an entrepreneur and the entrepreneurs that I work with. But it's the same thing. You were talking about corporate America, and like, yeah, if you don't do it, we're going to get someone else who will. If you're an employee somewhere, it's the same pressure. It's worse, but then there is an external pressure. Why didn't you answer that email that I sent at 9 p.m. at night? Why aren't you responding within an hour on the weekend? Why aren't you? And it's technology has made that possible, that encroachment possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's jump into a couple of fun things. For me, I have so many friends that do automation and I love them dearly and I will always support their business because of them as the person, right? AI as a whole, we have a very unhealthy relationship. I like to um, do different things to prove that I'm talking to people rather than bots. So, two things that I extract a lot of joy from and helps me manage my time is on LinkedIn. Maybe I shouldn't share this because now everyone's going to know, especially the AI people. On the very last line of my bio, I put in one sentence that says, please tell me your favorite color when you're sending a connection request.
Mm.
Bots don't know how to read profiles yet. Yet. Give them time, give them time. But for me, it's very important that when I'm doing collaborations, my health is always number one. And once you get into a certain level of awareness, you are challenged to either keep that energy up and continue that growth, that journey of growth by surrounding yourself with people that are going to constantly challenge you, or you can be around people that are maybe at the same level or lower, and it's going to result in frustration, for me at least. So from that perspective, I'm trying to be intentional to always surround myself by other conscious people, whether it means I'm giving them money, they're giving me money, but this is the intention followed by execution, right? So that's like the first thing that I get a lot of joy. I'm like, you want me to spend how many thousands of dollars, but what's your favorite color? And they're like, what? And I was like, sorry, not sorry. So it's like one thing. And then the second thing is in LinkedIn, because I get sold a lot, I have maybe 10 to 15 people trying to sell me something before lunchtime. I'm like, hi, do you want to at least say hello before you start pitching? Let's jump on a phone call. I feel violated here. I feel used. This is a cattle call rather than a relationship. And I put my middle initial. So I put Jessica M. Corvo. So when people send me those messages, if it's Dear Jessica or Hi Jessica or something like this, then it's a person, or chances are it's a person. Even if it's, a virtual assistant, it's still a human, right? Whereas for the other ones, because it's my name, it's the Jessica M, it's so funny to me on how people will justify that. And it's because I'll push back and I was like, hey, thank you. Or I'll just send like an emoji, or my favorite is the unicorn, the dubbing unicorn. I send that to everybody. And they're like, WTF, like, what is this? I'm like, I kind of mess with people a little bit, but I'd rather do that than find out I'm having a 20-minute conversation with a computer. And now I'm in my feels about that because I just wasted my own time.
I love it.
So I guess like the question is, how do you bring joy into your life in context of technology to kind of balance those scales?
So I want to play off what you just shared first. And my favorite thing in those situations when I'm getting templated and copy and paste messages, which I know are robotic, and I equate, you were joking.
It's a hustle. It's a hustle. Can't blame the
Yeah,
hustle.
it's,
Question the hustler though.
you're joking about it too, but I agree. There's a really great analogy for dating and sales. And it's like someone's trying to ask me if they can kiss me, but we haven't spoken yet. Or like, it's so broken. It's so broken. My favorite thing is I'll send people voice notes. And it's funny is I know if I send a voice note and it's a bot, it continues with its sequence of follow-up messages without even acknowledging my voice note, which is super funny. Another thing I do sometimes if I'm in a playful mood is I start pitching them on how I could help them, because obviously they're like, LinkedIn outreach is not working and they need help. So if they want help, and I'm laughing and I'm playful and I'm smiling the whole time and I'm being a little, I call it a schnitz. Like I'm stirring the pot a bit, but it's fun because it's the only way, because I don't want to get upset. I don't want to get mad. It's the
Yeah,
awkward way.
absolutely. You got to bring that element of lightness into an otherwise semi, stressful. And it's funny when you talk about the counter pitch. So I'm in business school and we're looking for communities to, make that pitch and everything. And I'll be 100% honest. The first time that I had a company, I was in Singapore and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had no freaking idea, none. And so I jumped on, I forget what the dating site was. I think it was Tinder. I jumped on Tinder and I used that to practice my pitching, interviewing, making pitches. I mean, I was transparent because I'm a pretty girl. So for me, that was super easy to get guys talking to me. I have no shame in my game, zero shame. I'm honest about it. And I was like, I'm launching a company. I'm trying to make some pitches. This is my easiest area to, make pitches. I can't really talk to strangers at the bus stop. So can I pitch something to you? And they thought it was hilarious. And to me, that was normal. I don't know why I thought that was normal, but I thought that was normal. And I just shared that with my business school people because they're like, how do you know who to pitch to? And we don't want to make the wrong pitch. First impressions are important. We don't want to, pitch the wrong person. I'm like, join a dating app.
Get all your practice there, refine it. Oh gosh, it's genius, Jess. It's
Yeah, yeah. And a second thing is in the US, we have insurance is like a big thing, a big hoo-ha. And it's interesting. I was talking to this insurance guy and he was telling me the back end on how the system works. So you put in that you're interested, you go into this big database. There's like maybe 100 different companies that get your information. Then from that, each agent or each company, they have, I think it was 10 to 15 different phone numbers attached to your profile. So if the first one you get blocked, the second one they'll call you, the third one they'll call you, and they just kind of go down the line. So for me, I started pitching to those people because sometimes they'll call and it's an automated, okay, fine, thank you. And then sometimes they'll send a text message. And for the text message, that's where I practice my pitching. 100%. I'm like, I love your hustle. I love the hustle. I love the innovation. I love the determination. I love the grit. If you're looking for another way to create a channel of income, let me know. So far, my success rate isn't that high. I got to work on my pitch. But they don't bother me anymore. So I think I'm still winning. So I think, kind of to bring it all back in, I think that it's super important. Number one, that always take that tech detox. If you're not sure of how connected you are with technology, this is a perfect way to kind of test that addiction or that attachment to something. See if you can go 4 hours, see if you can go 12 hours, see if you can go a whole weekend and just do that tech detox. Pay attention to what's happening, what's cropping up. What are the different things? What are the limits that you need for yourself? Your limits are going to be different from my limits. And so I'm okay with keeping the apps on my phone and then having a dance party with my plants. I remember a time where I couldn't do that because maybe it's shared space or I didn't have my little stop points to keep me in the present moment. So each person is very different. And then I think the next level is always be careful and be intentional and have that awareness to how it's affecting both your mental health and your relationships, because these are like the top two like things that can start to fall apart if you're not careful. And then as you just joyously shared with us, different ways to kind of make it fun, because technology is not the devil, it is a tool. So why not use it to bring joy into your world?
Absolutely.
So I think with all of those different things kind of swirling around, what do you do professionally? And now that people have already fallen in love with you, how can they spend all of their hard-earned money to work with you?
Professionally, I help coaches who are led by their heart and by purpose to want to make a difference take this drive to want to help others and make an actual business with it. Because most coaches, the ones, especially the ones that I want to work with and the ones that I connect with, went through something, went through their own shit, had some terrible experiences, had their own traumas, had their own journey, and now want to pay it forward. And now want to help other people. Now want to turn around and extend their arm and help other people. It's beautiful. The place that is coming from is so pure. However, a lot of those people are lacking the know-how to actually make a business of it, how to actually get clients in an authentic way, how to genuinely put out a message and market themselves in a way that doesn't feel icky, how to actually position their business and do it all in a way that feels authentic, feels aligned. So that's what I help coaches do, and I help new people step into the world for the first time. And I also help people that have been at it for a while make it so that they are making sustainable income. Everyone talks about financial freedom as it's some like, you know, thing that they can't define, but I'm helping people bring that purpose and business alignment together.
Absolutely. So basically, in short, you are the in-person with a heartbeat manifestation of the power of technology.
I like that way that sounds. I like that sounds.
Yeah, because when people are, I'm a firm believer that you have the creative mind and then you have the business mind, right? So you have like logic and the creative. And a lot of businesses I feel don't succeed because people try to do both sides without that understanding or acceptance of what their strengths are. You play your strengths, you hire for your weaknesses. And a lot of people, until they do that ego work, they're unable to do that. And this is why they spin their wheels, because they're like, I can handle everything. Ego, again, ego work, right? So, and then they get distracted by technology because it's a false sense of productivity, because they've just downloaded something, they've just added something to their ongoing list of different things. What they think versus what's actually happening are definitely different pages of the book, probably different books, if we're being honest. So you are, and if you will allow me to give you that much credit and snaps for it, you're that physical element and that in-person element with a heartbeat that solves that problem, because you allow people to shift from here into here, stay in here without using technology to hijack them, getting back up into here all the time. So that's what you do.
Thank you. I'll take that. That's beautiful. I love that a lot, because there is this one, it's this idea that I can do everything that you mentioned. I run into that with people. The other thing is not feeling they are worthy enough. Who are they to hire someone to help them is another challenge I run into with those kinds of heart-led people. And then there's this belief that, well, I have to be on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, TikTok. Oh God, Clubhouse is big. Oh, what about Instagram, Facebook, podcasts? I need a book. Jess has a book. Why don't I have a book yet? I do speaking gigs that like I funnel. I need a funnel. Oh, I need a chat bot. Like it is just so
Overwhelming. All of a sudden, you're like, I think I need a nap.
And you don't need that.
Yeah.
You need alignment, and you need to, there's a way for you to authentically express yourself that's going to make people excited to reach out to you.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is just, you have to keep that consistency on, you know, where people can find you. Because I think for me, I direct everybody to LinkedIn. And yes, I post, you know, on Instagram, and yes, I post on Facebook, and yeah, I post, you know, in different places, and starting to drop some of my videos on YouTube, but I hang out in LinkedIn. And so for me, I think it's important to dip your toes, to have that working knowledge of how to use everything else as a tool. But if you want to get my attention, drop into LinkedIn, because that's where I'm gonna be hanging out. And you train people, because I think from there, me as a business person, it reminds people that this is a business too. When
Yes.
you're in other places, I've fallen into a habit where Facebook was my healing canvas. So the boundaries are very convoluted because I'm so open. People have that false sense of connection without actually having that connection. And it, you know, turns into a, what's the next nugget that Jess is going to share? I don't have to pay for her coaching, because it's just going to be another minute before she's sharing some sort of revelation that I can get for free. And it's fine. Like, I'm okay, because that's what I created, right? But then shifting people, I think that's like another really big, powerful thing, if I may, that just the power of consistency, which I think is another benefit that you bring to the table, because it's just pick one and let's create a plan and let's just stick with it. And a lot of times when we're dealing with, you know, bots, or when we're dealing with AI, or when we're dealing with everything, it's about efficiency rather than practicality. There is no strategy, because you can very easily get lost in all that. You can't have that conversation. So another big up to the work that you do. I think in context of technology and stuff like that, you're the human manifestation of it.
I love it, because the consistency piece is so big. And what I help people work through is, okay, so who are your dream clients? Who are you excited to work with? Let's get really clear on them. Great. Where do they hang out? Two, what are your strengths? Do you have a voice that people compliment you on? Do you do cool doodles? Are you good at taking complex ideas and making them simple? Like, let's figure out what those are, and then figure out, and then this event diagram. And then third piece is, where is there, like, where's the organic traffic available? Because Facebook, for example, groups can be good, but you have to get them into groups,
Mhm.
or paid ads is good, but that's a whole other leap.
Yeah.
So like LinkedIn has great organic traffic, but if your
Yeah.
target is art students, then they're maybe not on LinkedIn. So it's about your strengths and gifts, where your people are, and then where
Yeah.
there's some organic reach, so that when you're showing up
Yeah.
consistently there,
Yeah.
you are being rewarded and you are connecting, you are helping.
Yeah.
And
Got to get that clarity before you can start getting the numbers. So you gotta have that clarity, and then you can start going in bulk or in mass, or all the rest of it. 'Cause there's no point in, poop in, poop out, right?
it's true. It's so true.
So I appreciate, thank you so much, Rob, for having, so much time, just being generous with your time, and how your mind works, and the little nuggets that people can take away. And I think that it's such an important part of mental health awareness and the mental health extravaganza, is to understand the element of technology and how that plays into our overall wellness. And it's a sneaky ninja. It can creep up on us without us realizing, it's still a tool. And I love the fact, I want to reiterate the fact that technology doesn't have feelings. So if you need to practice those healthy boundaries, start with technology, because it's not going to push back. I mean, it might have the notifications, but that's about it.
I love
So
it.
thank you so much. What is your favorite quote, that, or mantra, or something that you would like to leave with our audience?
Ooh, quote, mantra, or something I would like to leave with the audience. The one that's not my favorite, but it's one that I've been thinking about a lot recently as I push myself to a new level, and as I help a lot of people to feel comfortable expressing themselves and showing more of themselves online.
Mhm.
Because, well, I'm going to tangent, I'll come back to it. The best kind of confidence is when you're in alignment with what you're thinking and what you're saying, and
Integrity.
when you're showing those two things, because a lot of people fall into this trap and they think that they have to create some kind of avatar, some kind of person that they're showing online, and they can't show themselves. But when I'm thinking and feeling aligned with what I'm saying and doing, then there's no gotcha. There's no like gotcha, there's an imposter. And it's the best kind of unfuckable confidence. Sorry, I don't know if you want
Yeah.
swearing on here, but
Yeah.
so that's a really big piece. And to kind of capture that, there's a Dr. Seuss quote, which I love, which has been coming up a lot, which is that those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
Truth, truth. Absolutely, absolutely truth. I love that. I love that. So, what is the best place that people can find you?
LinkedIn is where I hang out the most too.
Oh,
LinkedIn is the best place for me.
yes, yes. We're gonna do a virtual fist bump.
Yeah.
Virtual fist bump. Yeah, and that perfect. So, I will drop all of your contact details so that people can reach out to you and help you with that clarification process, and maybe take that tech detox and let you do all the magic for them or with them. And thank you again for being so generous with your time, and also your thought process on how technology can and should be a tool to help us.
Thank you for hosting me, Jess. It's been a total and utter pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.